We need to clear up a few urban myths, because some questions have come in about some urban myths about you. One question that's come in, it may be an urban legend, but I've heard you read one book a day. True or false?
For about 30 years, it was an average of about 1.3 a day. But I've slowed down. It's probably an average of about 0.7 a day.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a second urban legend. Apparently, when you were entering university, you memorized the book of Romans for an entrance exam in Greek.
No, that's an urban myth.
Have you heard of that urban legend before?
Oh, I know somebody who did it for a course in Germany taught by Ernst Käsemann, when it was Ephesians, not Romans. But my father, when he was a young man, memorized the first 8 chapters of Romans. But even he didn't do the whole book. And that was just because he thought it was a godly thing to do, not because he was trying to pass an exam. So there are components of this that have got around.
Okay, so you've spoken about some of your study habits through the urban legends. Did you decide that you were going to read 1.3 books a day? How did you decide on your study habits over the years?
Well, first of all, you have to acknowledge that there's reading and there's reading. I mean, it's why I've never talked about that. I mean, I've answered questions, but I never talk about how many books I've read. Partly because people have the capacity for reading at quite different speeds. And I make the choice of reading some books, every line, every footnote, look up the references. You know, there are scholarly books that are right in my field, they're important. They take me a long time to read. There are other books where I read them pretty quickly for enjoyment, comments on culture and this sort of thing. But there's a lot of stuff out there that says roughly the same thing, so you get through it pretty fast. And there's still other books that were, when I wrote the book The Gagging of God, which was really a prolonged essay on culture and so on, when I started off talking about Jacques Derrida and postmodernism and stuff, I hadn't read any of their stuff. And it was opaque. I mean, it was dense. They mostly wrote in French. I read them in English, didn't understand them, so I read them in French and still didn't understand them. But gradually I began to see what was going on. But by the time I had cleared slowly about 50 books, then I read the next 600 or 700 in the field at an average of 8 or 10 or 15 a day. That doesn't mean I was reading them every word. I just needed to see how they were different from the last one. I mean, I read them enough that I could tell you where that position was as compared with the previous dude, you know. But I wasn't prepared to write a review on it or anything. So there's reading and there's reading and there's reading.
Who would be someone that you would read every word from?
Oh, a commentary where I'm writing a book on the same biblical book. For example, if I'm writing a commentary on Hebrews or something like that, then there'll be 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 commentaries that I'll read with attention to every single word. There'll be a variety of commentaries of different stances where I'll be reading very carefully. But then the commentaries after that, I just dip into enough to find out how they differ from the previous character. So you might see 300 commentaries listed at the end of the book, but that doesn't mean I've read them all the same way. So it takes a certain kind of willed decision to decide what to read fast and what to read slowly. And it takes practice to be able to read fast too. So I don't recommend it. I mean, the only thing I do recommend is that you make choices before you start reading anything, whether you're going to read something slowly enough that you can take notes, or fast enough that you finish the thing in half an hour.